chapter about strategy, I couldn't avoid talking about the VUCA world. VUCA is an acronym used to describe or reflect on volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of general conditions in a situation. The common use of this term, the term VUCA, began in the 90s and derives from a military vocabulary and has been subsequently used in emerging ideas in strategy development and leadership, and to applies in a wide range of organizations, including everything from nonprofit, corporation, education, everywhere. It is basically a way to measure the environment in these four specific characteristics. Now, more than ever, these four elements are present in our world, and we need to keep them in consideration as we plan for our strategy. But let's look at one of them at a time, and let's explore what they are and how can we interface with these elements successfully. The first one is volatility. Change is not a passage from point A to point B. In the past, we were thinking that change was from one condition to another. Nowadays, change is a continuum, it's a constant evolution, it's a transformation of the context, a continuous transformation. This is very relevant to us because every day we wake up, we find new informations that will in turn affect our daily life, our daily way of conducting business, everything we do. So, volatility now is one of the most present elements. And to measure how volatile an environment is, it's very important to determine in advance what kind of steps you need to take. I believe that to manage volatility, it's impossible. But to navigate volatility on the other side is actually not only possible, but it's advisable. And I believe to be able to do that, we need flexibility and agility. Some people think that the two terms could be used interchangeably. In fact, flexibility, it's more the ability to not break but flex, which palms, for instance, are very famous for their flexibilities because they have a part of their tree down below the ground, and the part above the ground can go from one side to the other without breaking. And flexibility is the ability to flex without breaking. And that's one of the things. But agility, on the other side, is the ability to move fast in the face of an opportunity, is to act timingly and appropriately when the occasion arises. And that's a different thing because if you think about flexibility, it's a defense mechanism from the turmoil that goes on around us. While agility, in fact, is a proactive an attitude that allows you to be ready when the opportunity comes. That means to pay attention while you're flexible, not to be run over by circumstances. You keep an eye on the opportunity, and as soon as that arises and the time is ripe, you can actually move fast and take the opportunity. Now, one other thing that I believe is quite relevant in the context of volatility is resilience. Now, resilience, we all know this term because nowadays is quoted quite often. It comes from the siderurgic environment, and it was the ability of the metal to come back to its shape after being put under pressure from heat or cold. Now, in the context of human beings, resilience is the ability to step back up and become even stronger after a failure or after having fall down. I believe resilience is in every one of us, but it's activated only by those who have persistence and keep going even after they failed, because this specific characteristic comes into play when you arrive at the end of your rope. Basically, when you fail, when you are in the depth of your despair, that's when resilience can kick in and make you come back up even stronger than before you failed. But to be able to set it in motion, as we said, it's necessary to have the mindset of not giving up and continuing even when you think you got to the end of your resources or your ability to face something. Now, one of the things about resilience is that you have to believe you have it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to reach the point in which it sets in and starts to lead your life. Because if you don't believe in resilience, you are going to protect yourself and you're not going to go to the end of your rope because you're going to be afraid of that. And rightfully so, because it's important to be able to not go beyond our limits. What I am questioning though is are the limits we think we have the limits we really have? Because literature is full of stories of people that thought they were at the end and then they kept going and rised above the situation, coming out stronger than before. So, volatility has to be measured before you create your own strategy. And the most important skills to be able to manage yourself in volatility are flexibility, agility, and resilience. The second element is uncertainty, is the inability to know everything fully. Risk analysis in this context is quite difficult, if not impossible. To face uncertainty, it's essential to have a clear goal and the ability to improvise in the face of the unknown. For many, improvisation is like going by the seat of their pants, swinging it in the moment. For me, improvisation is a form of art based on a lot of study and the ability to transform that into practice. So I would compare improvisation to the jazz improvisation, to the jazz jam session. The point is that these people have studied their part, or not the part in the improvisation, but they've studied their instrument and everything that had to do with that type of music, such that they can actually come together and create something on the spot. But the thing that is created on the spot is based on a lot of study, a lot of thinking, and a lot of practice to be able then to swing it in the moment. So improvisation is not the art of finding the words on the spot as much as it is the art of studying very well, then let go and trust yourself to be able to find what is wanted and needed in the situation, drawing it out of what you studied and what you've learned in the process of growing up until now. The third element is complexity, interconnectivity, and interdependence. Complexity doesn't follow the principle of cause and effect. Actually, it's based on the contribution of every single side to the whole, and each contribution keeps the whole as it is. And basically, when one of the elements positions themselves differently, the other elements have to adjust to that element. And complexity is difficult to explain, but actually it's a very interesting to manage because as long as you're clear about your contribution, considering the complexity of the environment you're in, you can intervene by your contribution and through that help the context to adjust to it in a different way. Usually, cultural changes and mindset shifting are due to complexity because it's not just one thought that is generating an action, but it's a way of thinking that generates everything we do. And so when you intervene on your way of thinking, you have to keep in mind that it's not just one thing that can change everything, but it's a different position of one of the same element that will require the other elements to adjust. As a leader, when you relate to the context with the complexity perspective, you are there to allow others to understand what you are up to and what do you want them to be part of. The ability to give a context to people of your choice is essential because they will in turn, if they understand the goal you have, they will in turn have the possibility to contribute themselves with much more autonomy in the process and much more space for them to come up with creative solutions in the context that you've given them. The last element is Ambiguity. Ambiguity is the quality of events that can be viewed from different angles and give rise to different interpretations. So it's a situation that can be interpreted in many different ways. Many people feel uncomfortable in a situation of ambiguity because there is no certainty. But if you look at it from a different perspective, you can see that ambiguity gives you the opportunity to give value to the situation on the base of your objective. Because given that ambiguity allows for different options, then you can choose your own option and bring it in as order in chaos. It's like bringing light to the dark. The task of this video is going to be for you to measure these four elements in your own context. Analyze how volatile, how uncertain, how complex, and how ambiguous your context is, and see how you can respond to it with your contribution, and how you can give direction to your people, considering these elements are present and strong in the environment as never before. So write those things down for me and send them over in the logbox, and I'll be there to put my comments and my coaching for you. And I'll see you in the next chapter, in which we will talk about how to lead others and include coaching skills in your management style. I will see you in the next chapter.